Hi, I'm Veronica and welcome to Mini Urban Farm. Today I'm going to be taking you on a tour of the backyard garden. Now, as you can see behind me, the garden is fenced in. We do live in an HOA gated community, so the fence just provides an additional layer of privacy for our garden and for our backyard. We have about 450 square feet of gardening space, which is from the fence line all the way to just about where I'm standing. It includes our compost bin, it includes 9 raised beds, a watering hose, which is pretty much our irrigation setup for right now, and then on the side of it, the grass here that you can see is just space for Milo to run around and play in, so that's not included in the garden tour. And just as a side note, we also do have a chicken coop with 11 chickens. That is not in this backyard. We have an additional piece of land which is pretty much all forest except for the chicken coop with a little cleared out space around it. I'll be doing a chicken coop tour in a later video, but for right now, let's just jump right into the garden tour. So we have a total of 9 raised beds. I'm walking through the pathway right now. Sorry if the camera is a little bit shaky. I'm trying to go as steadily as possible. But we have the large one back there, which I'll get to in a moment. It is about 8 feet horizontally and 3 feet wide. These smaller ones, there's 8 of these smaller ones, 4 with trellises, 4 without trellises, but these ones are about 2 feet across and 6 feet wide. Okay, so I just want to talk for a quick second about the actual materials that our garden beds are made out of. All of our raised beds in our garden are made out of 2x4s on the corners and held together by fence pickets. Now, these are the dog-eared fence pickets at Home Depot that are like $2 a piece. They're pine wood, not cedar. They are pressure treated, and I know that when I say that, I'm going to get a little bit of a controversial reaction to that. So let me explain why we chose to use them in our garden. About 10 or 15 years ago, they actually outlawed the use of arsenic in treated lumber. So way back when, they used to use arsenic in treated lumber, and the concern is that you would have arsenic leaching through the soil and into your food and into your body ultimately. So 10 or 15 years ago, they banned using arsenic in treated lumber anymore, which means that the chemicals used in raised beds are no longer going to be as detrimental to the soil, to your body, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not as much of a risk. Now, can these chemicals still leach into your soil? Yes. But in my mind, it's so minimal that it really does make up for using pressure-treated lumber. So we use pressure-treated lumber just because it lasts longer and because it's cheaper, honestly. Instead of having to chop down more trees and replace the garden boards when the untreated lumber ultimately decays, these boards last significantly longer, and it really is just, for me and my family, a more convenient way to do our raised beds. And really, at the end of the day, my goal is just to produce homegrown vegetables and herbs and hopefully one day fruits that are just healthy for the family. So I'm not as concerned with chemicals leaching into the soil since it's such a minimal risk. But of course, you can do your own research on it and decide for yourself. For me and mine, though, we will be using these raised beds for a very long time to come. Alright, so as you can see, we have used 2x4s here on the inside of the corners construction, and then we've taken these pickets, and you can see the dog-eared parts here. I didn't bother to cut them off or anything like that, and we have really just stapled them or screwed them. Some have nails, some have screws in them, and we've just really screwed them onto the inside here. Alright, so we also have several potted plants scattered around in the rocks portion. I don't know if you can see this. It's all pebbles, basically. And so we have 2 rosemary on either side, and we also have several potted plants, mostly thyme, lemon thyme, basil, that sort of thing. We also do plant herbs inside the raised beds themselves, but it's just always nice to have an abundance so we can make our herb bombs and just other things and give away to family and friends as they need herbs. Alright, so I also mentioned that we have trellises on 4 of the raised beds. One of them is right here. We have 1 on that side, 1 on that side, and then 2 further down where the tomatoes are currently growing. I like to grow vertically. I think it's an excellent use of space. I like growing cherry tomatoes, which we grow a lot of, and they always get overgrown. So it's just nice to be able to trellis. We also grow a lot of squash, which trellises and needs a sturdy trellis. So these were built out of 2x4s also. We just pretty much did a rectangle construction around the boxes. Instead of cutting the 2x4s here, we cut them all the way up here and then just joined the rest of the trellis to it. This green wire, I don't know if you can see it's green or not, but it's green. That green wire is just that roll of green trellis material that you can buy at Home Depot. I think it's like 15 or 20 bucks. And we actually will be adding more trellis space to the rest of our garden boxes because a lot of the vegetables that I've chosen to grow in spring of this year require trellis space. So we ran out of trellis space and we will be adding those on. I'll likely make another video about that, just adding on trellis space to existing garden boxes. But yeah, we will be adding more trellis space because we definitely use it. Alright, so for our irrigation system, we basically use a water hose, and we also have the irrigation system for the lawn, which is basically sprinklers. We have a certain nozzle on it. I don't know if you can see the settings, but the nozzle has different settings like shower, mist, and you can change them to jet, things like that. Basically just so that we can get different pressure if it's full-grown plants versus more delicate plants like seedlings. That was really important for me to have a certain nozzle. You can get them on Amazon. They're really cheap. One day, hopefully this year, we will be setting up an irrigation system like a drip system or an overhead watering system so that we don't have to come outside and manually water the plants every day. But for right now, we have the water hose. And we also have the sprinkler system. Now the sprinkler system is on a timer just like any other lawn sprinkler system. This zone, right, it's normally set up by zones, so this zone is specific to this side of the yard, including the garden and this other grass that's over here on my side. So we set that up for once every other day watering, and that pretty much covers most of the plants. I usually come out here and still water by hand with the garden hose pretty often, but hopefully we'll get the irrigation system, drip system set up this year. Alright, so the last thing that we have in the garden is a compost bin. It's a relatively small one, which is great because it saves a lot of space. It does spin so that I can come outside and rotate the materials, which just helps everything to decompose a little bit faster. We did have the idea of doing a larger compost bin, one that you have different stalls and you can turn over the materials, but for right now, this works perfectly. I got it offline and it is a little bit difficult to assemble the first time around. There's like a lot of different pieces to it, but it does work really well, and every couple months we are able to take all of the compost out of the compost bin and add them to the raised beds. Alright, so that pretty much wraps it up for the garden tour. In the next few days I will be harvesting the majority of the things in the garden, putting them in the freezer, and getting rid of some of our tomato plants, some of our green bean plants, and some of the other things that are just really dying off. We are in now the beginning of January, which means it is time to prepare for the spring garden. I will be starting seeds pretty shortly, actually, which is really exciting, and I'll also be trying to build a potting bench / greenhouse to put all of our seed starts in, so that they are protected from the elements. So thank you so much for joining me on this garden tour, and I'll see you in the next video.